Five. All right. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Appreciate everyone who's here in the room and those participating online. Welcome to the fall edition of the Water Quality Advisory Work Group meeting put on by the Water Quality Division of the TCEQ. My name is Greg Easley, and I'm going to be moderating today's meeting. And soon I'll introduce others from TCEQ here at the table that'll be presenting on particular topics during the meeting. But first, I'll just go over a few housekeeping things. So as many of you know, the purpose of the meeting is to go over topics of interest within the Water Quality Division, which is where we have the water quality, stormwater, and biosolids permitting programs. So any topics of interest we think you'd be interested in, we talk about them at these quarterly meetings. The meeting is being recorded, so if someone does miss the meeting, they can go back and look at the recording. We post the recordings of the meeting as well as a summary of the meeting about a week or two after the meeting is held. So you can find those on the Water Quality Advisory Work Group website, which if you're not familiar with that site, it is easy to find. You just go to TCQ's main webpage, type in the letters WQAWG in the search box and hit enter, and that'll take you, get you a link to the advisory work group webpage, where we'll have this meeting's recording as well as previous meetings in addition. As far as today's meeting, we've got several topics to go over with you. We'll present each one topic by topic, and after we are finished with a specific topic, we'll pause for any questions that you might have. Obviously, for those in the room, you just raise your hand or speak up. Anyone online have a question, you won't have audio capabilities, but you can type your questions into the chat feature of Microsoft Teams, and we will address those questions as they come in. If you don't think of any questions until later, that's okay too. We got a dedicated Q&A portion of the meeting near the end of the agenda that we can catch all those additional questions at that time. So with that, let me go ahead and go around the two tables here at the front and introduce. We'll each introduce ourselves. Again, my name is Greg Easley. I manage the Water Quality Assessment section of the Water Quality Division here at TCEQ.
Good afternoon. I'm Brian Saran. I'm the land application team leader that manages the biosolids, CAFO, and domestic wastewater application programs.
I'm Peter Schaefer, team leader of the standards implementation team here in the Water Quality Division, and I'll be talking about the IP revisions.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Villalba. I am the team leader for the stormwater team.
Hi, I'm Jesse Guerrero-Salamia. I am a permit writer for the stormwater team and the project manager for the multi-sector general permit 2026 renewal.
Anthony Bose, City of Waco,
Yates for you resources, company is he doing?
Matt Darcy with Gray Civil. You're looking to learn a bit more about the MS4 and stormwater permit.
About Santos Ramirez with engineering domestic reuse team of the permits, domestic permits team, Water Quality Division, TCEQ. I'm with sanitary water system.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, again for being here. Sorry, Shannon, I forgot about you. Go ahead.
Quite all right. I thought I'd introduce myself. I'm joining online. I'm Shannon Gibson, Special Assistant with the Water Quality Division.
Thanks, Shannon, for keeping me on my toes. So before we get into the updates that we have for you today, I did want to give one more update. I know last July's meeting, last quarter, I talked about some updates within the division as far as some leadership changes. I have another update to give, more organizational structure of the division, just to update you on. some of you are probably aware, we were growing in size as a division. We got multiple positions given to us through the last legislative session. So we're a bigger division than we were not too long ago. And so one of the adjustments we've made based on that growth is to split up our current permitting section into two separate sections. So there'll now be a domestic wastewater section, which will include the domestic or municipal permitting team, the pre-treatment team, and the engineering and domestic reuse team. And then the other section is the industrial wastewater section, which includes the industrial permitting team, the oil and gas permits team, and the stormwater permits team. So just wanted to make you all aware of that subtle change. Same folks with some new faces, but just a little different organization to the division. Just want to make you aware of. So I will stop there and hand over the floor to Rebecca to start us off with our program updates.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Assume yes. Okay, so I'm going to give you an update on the 2024 Phase 2 MS4 General Permit TXR 040,000, specifically regarding the applications, where we are at with the applications and the annual reports. So just to bring everybody to the same page, this general permit regulates stormwater discharges from Phase 2, or otherwise also known as small MS4s, that stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, that are located in regulated urban areas with a population of 50,000 people or more. This permit was renewed on August 15 of 2024. So the deadline for MS4s to submit applications for either renewal or new applications was February 11th of this year, 2025. The applications for the very first time, they were required to be submitted electronically via the Texas Net MS4 application system that was developed with or by EPA. So thank you everybody for submitting your applications, going through the process. You know, it was a learning curve for both us and the related community, but we made it through. We received lots of applications. So we are reviewing them. You know, we received over 600 applications. And so just want to explain a little bit of how the process works, because it's a little different from the paper applications that we had before. So first of all, through the NET MS4 system, we don't have what we call a notice of deficiency. So as we're reviewing the application, if we have any issues or something's not correct, we will send it back, and normally we will call that a notice of deficiency. In the NET MS4 system, it's considered a denial. It'll be when we give you a denial because it's a notice of deficiency, you will receive an email through the NET MS4 system that your application was denied, and there'll be a comment section that lets you know what items need to be addressed. So once you address those comments, you will resubmit your application. Even though it looks like you have a new application date, we are honoring the original application. So that's the date that we will be submitting to ISIS, which is EPA's national database, to show the original date of when the application was submitted. So regardless, if you submit one or two more submittals due to addressing notices of deficiency, again, we're honoring that first date. So once you get a notice of deficiency, you respond to it, and then if everything's good, we will go ahead and approve it. If we really are going to do a true denial, meaning we're not going to approve or accept your application, that could be as a result because the application type is incorrect, you have an unsatisfactory compliance history rating, you owe money to TCQ, you have delinquent fees, or maybe you did not meet the waiver eligibility requirements because of either the population criteria or because you are discharged into a water body with an approved TMDL that has stormwater controls. So there are very reasons where we would do a true denial, but just be aware that, you know, if it's a notice of deficiency, you're going to see comments that you need to address. Everybody that is in the application with a user permission, either a signatory, a preparer, or a viewer or editor, they're going to receive this email. If an application is approved, then you're going to receive confirmation through the NetMS4 system via an email. You're going to get an email that looks like our letterhead, like a letter saying you have been approved. And you're going to see links in there, hyperlinks that you click, and then that will take you to your certificate of authorization that then you can go ahead and print. So the approval process, is pretty simple in terms of what you receive, and you'll have access to all those documents. So as I said, we received over 600 applications. So where are we right now with those applications that are pending? So far, we are pleased to say that we have approved 145 renewal NOIs. We have 489 that are submitted that have been placed on hold. That's how the system calls it when they're pending. They're called on hold. So we have 489 that still need to be reviewed. Of those 489, we are currently reviewing 126, and they are in various stages of the review process. But then we also have 36 NOIs that we cannot touch. And unfortunately, that's because we have NetMS4 issues. So we're working with EPA to have them address that. So there's 36 NOIs that we cannot touch because the system won't let us click the approve, the deny, or any other buttons that are seen in the system. So we are working with EPA. We have a ticket pending for those issues to be addressed. So once approved, what happens? So we're getting a lot of questions about that. So once your NOI is approved, you of course need to begin implementation of the renewed or the new authorization, which includes your 2024 Stormwater Management Program that you didn't submit to TCEQ, but you told us in the application all the elements, the activities and BMPs that you are implementing. And you also need to implement those, BMPs or activities. Of course, you will also need to begin tracking and measuring those activities in BMP so that you have that information to see how your activities and BMPs are working, and so that you can then report them in your annual report. Once your application is approved, just as before, if you have any changes to the notice of intent or the waiver, once you receive approval, you can go ahead and submit a notice of change through NetMS4. So the NetMS4 system does allow you to submit a notice of change or an NOC. As a reminder, the reporting period under this new 2024 general permit, we only have one reporting period, and that is a calendar year. So it is from January 1st through December 31st. Under the 2019 general permit cycle, once you are approved, the year ends when you receive that approval. So that approval date is going to be the last day of your 2019 permit cycle. Then you will start your 2024 general permit cycle, and that starts year one, once you get approved. So some news regarding the annual reports. The annual reports, we have said that we were going to get them to be submitted electronically. We were working with EPA to develop an annual report module in the Texas NetMS4 system. However, due to limited resources with EPA, some of you have heard in the news, EPA has been affected, and therefore the development of our Texas annual report module in NetMS4 has been paused since April 2025 due to those limited resources. EPA at this time does not know when they will resume development of this annual report module for us. So right now the resources that EPA does have are limited to addressing any bugs or issues for all the electronic tools that they have regarding net. So the development of systems is being paused. So therefore, annual reports under the 2024 general permit term will not be submitted electronically until further notice is provided by us, TCEQ. So please keep an eye on our website. We will also report the news during this meetings or any other meetings that we have. So again, the electronic reporting module in NetMS4 is not ready. So for those of you that are still working on your 2019 general permit cycle, implementing that because your application is still not approved, you need to continue to report via paper or hard copy using the 2019 annual report template until your renewal application is approved. Once your application is approved and you are operating under the 2024 general permit cycle, then for now, you're still going to continue to report via paper or hard copy, but you're going to be using the updated 2024 annual report template that should be available shortly. You didn't like my updates. So then the last thing is that in NetMS4, we do have also another option that's available for entities regarding duly authorized representatives. So as you know, there's only certain titles that can sign the NOI, the NOC, the NOT, or the waiver. However, for annual reports, that signatory authority can be delegated based on 30 TAC 305.128 that allows certain titles to be authorized to delegate signatory for reports. So if your MS4 is going to be designating somebody else that didn't sign the application, somebody else is going to sign the annual report, then that option is available in NetMS4 for you to go and assign the duly authorized representative, or DAR, DAR, as the system calls it. So that is an option that's already available in NetMS4. So again, submit your annual reports by paper until we tell you otherwise. So for those of you that are being approved, your next reporting period will be March 31st of next year. And your calendar year will end this December. If you have any questions, please let us know. The team will be happy to respond to your specific situation. I know those entities that have a fiscal year, sometimes it can be a little bit confusing at what your reporting period needs to be for your annual reports. So that's my update. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca. Anyone have any questions for Rebecca? Looks like we've got one on the chat. I'll get that one first. If we were approved in September, should we submit 2 reports, one for 2019 and one for 2024?
Yes. So you get approved, like let's say September 1st, then your last reporting period under the 2019 cycle ends on that date, and that would be your last annual report under the 2019 cycle. And then September 2nd, let's say the day after, begins your year 1. So you will be reporting September, October, November, December as your first reporting year. So it's going to be a short 4-month year.
All right, thank you. Any questions in the room? Okay.
Yeah, I just had a quick question to clarify on the denial. I know there's like kind of a reference for like a deficiency being kind of considered a denial, but you can still submit, something to fix that deficiency. But for true denial, such as like compliance, waiver eligibility, delinquency, that requires resubmission. I just wanted to.
So yeah, so if somebody submitted the wrong application type, let's say they tried their best to try to do a waiver, and we're like, you don't meet that, you need to submit an NOI. So they turn around and submit a notice of intent. They would have to, of course, develop their stormwater management program, because under a waiver, you don't have to develop a stormwater management program. If they have a compliance history rating, unfortunately, that means the general permit is not an option. They're going to have to apply under an individual permit. If they owe delinquent fees, right now we're really not denying them. We're giving the option, okay, you owe $40. Sometimes it's been like that, and sometimes it's been like $8,000, okay? So we say, okay, pay this money, but we're going to give it time. And if it just doesn't come through, then we're going to have to deny because we cannot approve. So for those that owe money, we are giving them the opportunity to pay.
So it just kind of depends on
the
denial. That makes total sense. Thank you.
We've got a couple more questions online. Next one is, what's the timeline for phase 1 MS4 electronic reporting?
So unfortunately, that's also been on pause because EPA was working on the phase 2 annual report module first. And then once they were finished with that, then they were going to move on to the phase 1 MS4 annual reporting, which was going to be it was going to look a lot simpler than the phase two. But right now, that's also, they didn't even start that. So right now it's on hold. So you will continue to report via paper or hard copy.
All right, thank you. And then another question. What if a city is reporting on the fiscal year under the old permit and still hasn't been approved? Would they submit a report for the last fiscal year and then another partial report covering the remainder of year once approved, potentially leading to 2 partial reports?
Yes, but like I said, everybody's situation could be slightly different. So I don't want to say yes with covering everybody. Your situation could be slightly different than maybe, we've had to where somebody, their, year could be maybe 2 days. So it's just going to be silly to report a whole annual report on 2 days. So sometimes we might be able to make some accommodations, especially because we're working through paper applications paper annual reports right now. We have a little bit more flexibility than we were working through the electronic system already. So again, please reach out to us, send an email to our SWGP mailbox, and we'll be happy to address your specific situation to see if you will have 2 short annual reports or maybe just one that we can combine things based on how much time you have under each period.
All right. Next question. How do you handle BMPs as you transition between the 2019 permit to 2024 permit when a complete calendar year hasn't occurred under either SWMP?
So if I understand that question correctly, we have been receiving those questions. So if you only have a partial reporting period, let's say, for example, you only have 1 quarter, then you do what I guess the best term to use is a prorated, that, okay, you had to do 100% of inspections at 100 sites or whatever, something like that. I'll use 100 because it's simple. And you only have a quarter, then we're only expecting you to do 25% or 25 inspections or whatever that numeric number is that you're supposed to be accomplishing. So it's not that we expect you to do everything that you would have done in 1 year in a month or 2 months. We're going to expect you to do, prorated to determine what portion of that period is applicable for you to do those BMPs.
Okay, and this may be the same question, but I'll go ahead and read it out and see if you have anything to add. If the permittee was approved in September, is the permittee required to implement the entire year of the new MS4's BMPs within that roughly 4-month period?
No, so the similar question than the previous one. And so, yeah, the answer is no, you're not required. You just implement the percentage of time that you are under that reporting year, reporting period.
Okay. Thanks, Rebecca. Any other questions in the room? Okay, well, I think that's all we've got now on that topic. So thanks again, Rebecca. We'll move next to Peter, talk about the implementation procedures.
All right, thanks, Greg. I'm really got this on the agenda today to talk about timeline. But I'll go through and talk about all the revisions. It'll probably be a recap for a lot of you, but for some of you that haven't heard what the revisions are, it'll be new to you. And there might be a couple new things for those of you that have heard this before, but no big surprises. Just like adding primary and secondary contact recreation and secondary contact recreation 1 and 2, things like that to match the standards. That's nothing that won't be shocking to you. So don't be worried. And I guess I'll just start off with the timeline, and then after that I'll go through what all the revisions are. I don't have any specific dates yet on the timeline, but it's just really to let you know that we're kind of shaking these loose, and these hadn't been on the agenda for so long because we're kind of in a holding pattern. We are moving ahead. We're kind of getting momentum, moving ahead, and we will be working on an update to the timeline and should have some updated dates to give you soon. Just don't have those today. There's a water quality stormwater seminar at the Pickle Center next Tuesday. It's possible we'll have updated timeline by then, but if not, it'll kind of be stay tuned, sort of will be the message there. So what are the revisions? I'll just go down my list here. The pH screening procedures, these are procedures that we've been implementing for many years now, and it's just to get those established in the IPs. The current version of the IPs is 2010, so it's been a long time since we've updated these. So a lot of what we're doing is incorporating things that we are already doing in our permitting and getting them memorialized in those IPs. Second one is procedures for reasonable potential analysis for whole effluent toxicity testing. Again, we've been incorporating these for quite some time, getting them memorialized. We're updating our appendices. So Appendix B, this is the endangered species. We're adding new species that have been listed, removing a couple species that have been delisted. Appendix C, this is updates to critical low flow and harmonic mean flow. Appendix D, these are the ambient water quality values, and we're including some unclassified segments as well. So that's something new for this new version. Then updates to the MALs, that's kind of stay tuned. That's one of the things that was kind of holding up the timeline. We are making some decisions on that, and so those decisions have not been made, but they're in the works right now. So when those decisions are made, then we'll move forward based on what is decided. Toxic pollutants without criteria. The lipid factor, the lipid correction factor has been removed from that because that's consistent with the way it's being used. And the next one on the list is temporary standards. Updating that to be consistent with the water quality standards, just adding a couple little provisions to make it consistent with the updated water quality standards. And as I mentioned, bacteria, we're revising that to be consistent with the latest updates in the standards. Revising the definition of method detection limit and minimum analytical level to be consistent with the current water quality standards. And then just some general updates, corrections, and format changes. Some terms have been updated to be consistent throughout the document to ensure that, what we're calling something in one area is we're going to call it the same thing in another section. The titles and retitles and we're sequentially numbering all tables, figures, and equations, as well as defining all equation variables clearly. And then just some other non-substantive grammar and organizational revisions to improve readability. So once we do shake these loose, the next steps will be notifying EPA and working with EPA, notifying them of our and then getting a date at commissioner's agenda for proposal. And then after that, we'll publish a 30-day comment period. And then after that, following that comment period and incorporation of any comments that we might need to, then final step is adoption.
All right. Thank you, Peter. Any questions on particular topic?
I'd like to appreciate you clarifying they're going to have toxicity testing. Will that be similar to the industrial water and oil field water, similar to what we call biomonitoring, or to a major wastewater treatment plant?
Exactly. What did he say? Yes.
I thank you for that.
Heather?
Sorry,
Hers.
I'm Derek Webb, just trying to understand relationship between the procedures to implement the Texas surface water quality standards and the water quality standard revision of the water quality standards itself.
Right.
Are these procedures, do these come before the updated 2026 water quality standards or in parallel, or what's the, I don't quite get that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Hopefully everybody heard that. The question is, what's the difference between the water quality standards and the procedures to implement the water quality standards, and which comes first as far as, does one sort of direct the other? And sorry to turn my back while I'm answering the question, but I'll try to turn sideways. So the procedures to implement the water quality standards are really a document that turns these standards, which is basically, what sort of water quality do we need to maintain in our water bodies and other details like that. And our IPs are a way to turn those standards. It's how we implement those standards when we're issuing permits. So how do we say there's a DO criterion of 5 milligrams per liter in a water body? How do we take that and, turn it into permit limits in a permit? And the IPs will help establish that. Or if we have a nutrient limit in a permit, the IPs will explain how we determine what that limit should be and how it gets in the permit. And then as far as which comes first, it's really a parallel thing, but obviously they've not been in parallel for quite some time, since the IPs, the current version is 2010, and there have been several standards updates since then. So ideally they should be done in parallel, and we work with the standards development folks, and so that they don't have to issue the standards and then we go, okay, this is what the standards are, these are what we'll update. We're working together so that when those standards are adopted, our IPs will be consistent with those standards.
But it sounds like the IPs right now are in a little faster timeline. Is that accurate or not? Or they really are going to be?
It's more just a catch up on, the several revisions that have taken place, several standards revisions that have taken place since that 2010 version. But talking with the standards development folks and making sure that our IPs will be consistent with the latest version of the standards. But actually, we do really have to wait until those standards are final, because if we implement, we don't want to implement based on a proposed standard if that standard is ultimately not adopted. Thanks.
Other questions for Peter? All right, seeing and hearing none, thank you, Peter. We'll go on to our general permit updates and start off with Jesse.
All right, guys, so I'll be covering the multi-sector general permit renewal for 2026. So this general permit regulates the stormwater discharges from industrial activities, and it's set to expire on August 14th of 2026. TCEQ has initiated the 2026 renewal of the general permit and is currently in the proposal phase of the general permit renewal process. Please note this renewal is to address the expiration of the general permit and is separate from the amendment to the MSGP that was effective as of May 7, 2025. TCEQ held a stakeholder meeting to discuss upcoming renewal in November 6th last year and received comments until November 20th of last year. On May 21st of 2025, TCEQ sent the draft MSGP to EPA for their 90-day review. We received a response letter from EPA on August 18th of 2025 with approval to proceed with the issuance of the draft general permit without comments or revisions. Some of the major changes that we've addressed in the renewal include moving the tables listing the regulated SIC codes and the NAICS codes from Part 2 of the 2021 MSGP to an Appendix A. The 2017 NAICS codes were updated to the 2022 NAICS codes. And this is just to reflect kind of the reference table that reflects the NAICS codes and the SIC codes. We removed SIC code 1231 for anthracite mining from Sector H and the NAICS codes SIC tables because it's not applicable in Texas. The Texas Occupational Health and Safety Administration, OSHA, SIC manual describes as SIC as only including facilities in Pennsylvania. We clarified in Part 2, D9, that applications must be submitted to any MS4 receiving discharges, whether the MS4 is regulated by TCEQ or not. We added in Part 2A the option of preparing and maintaining an electronic SWIP. This is to be consistent with the construction general permit, TXR 150,000. We added in Part 2D2, subsection B, that substantially similar outfalls may not be established for water quality monitoring requirements. This was already a requirement for the permit. We just wanted to reiterate in this summary. We changed 6 benchmark levels based on data collected and analyzed during the current permit term. We also added the definition of high-level radioactive waste in Part 2. We added Part 2B17 to include the provision to prohibit authorization of discharges associated with the operation of a facility that is licensed for the storage of high-level radioactive waste by the United States Nuclear Regulatory Commission under 10 CFR Part 72 based on Texas Health Code 4010525. His revision implements House Bill 7 from the second special session of the 87th Legislature of 2021. As a result of House Bill 4112 from the 89th legislative session, we have revised the MSGP to also include the prohibition of discharges associated with the operation of a facility that is licensed for the disposal of high-level radioactive waste. TCEQ sent the revised draft to MSGP, MSGP to EPA to include this additional change as a result of state legislation. The general permit is currently scheduled for public notice and 30-day public comment period on November 14th of December 15th to December 15, 2025. I wanted to note that we had previously mentioned that this would begin in January of 2026. Due to the approval of the MSGP by EPA without comments, we moved the public comment period just to kind of stay on track with the timeline. The notice will be published on the Houston Chronicle and the Texas Register. A public meeting is tentatively scheduled for December 15, 2025, and will be held in the TCEQ Austin headquarters agenda room. The public meeting will consist of a formal presentation of the general permit requirements and changes for the first half of the meeting. The second half of the meeting will open up the opportunity for attendees to submit oral comments to the general permit. And one last thing. Comments received in writing during the comment period and orally in the public meeting allows the public to ask for further clarification of permit requirements. This may also lead to potential changes if needed in the general permit or further elaboration of the general permit requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Any questions? Subject?
PFAS, what sector was that with impact?
So as of right now, we haven't made any additional requirements as a result of PFAS, for PFAS.
Else?
You mentioned the bill numbers once more. I think I know what this.
No, absolutely. So the first one I mentioned was House Bill 7 of the 87th Legislature. And then the second one was House Bill 4112 from the 89th legislative session.
There's the one was addressed in disposal, the other one storage.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Jesse. Next up, we got several more general permit updates that Shannon will give to us. You there, Shannon?
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Can.
Excellent. Thank you. The first general permit will be the aquaculture general permit, the TXG 130000. TCEQ is proposing to renew and amend this general permit, which authorizes discharges from an aquaculture facility or a related aquaculture activity. The renewal will replace the current permit when it expires on April 18th, 2026. Significant changes to the general permit include revising the definition of wastewater to include water from the washdown, cleaning, and flushing of sorters, tumblers, which are types of processing equipment now commonly used in oyster mariculture. We also revised the general permit to allow level 5 facilities, which are oyster mariculture facilities, to clean system components in or over water in the state. EPA reviewed the draft permit package and provided approval on May 27th, 2025. Notice of the proposed general permit was published in the Texas Register and the Houston Chronicle on August 22nd, and a hybrid virtual and in-person public meeting was held on September 22nd earlier this year. No public comments were received, and the draft permit will proceed to adoption in spring of 2026. Next is the evaporation pond general permit, the WQG 100000. TCQ proposed to renew and amend this general permit, which authorizes the discharge of wastewater from industrial or water treatment facilities by evaporation adjacent to water in the state. The renewal replaced the current permit when it expired on September 15th, 2025. It was adopted at the Commissioner's agenda on August 6th, 2025, and became effective, like I said, on September 15th, 2025. Existing permittees have 90 days to submit a new notice of intent or NOI under the reissued permit, and that is before December 14th, 2025. Next is the conventional water treatment general permit, the TXG 640000. TCEQ proposed to renew and update this general permit, which authorizes the discharge of wastewater generated as a result of conventional water treatment at water treatment facilities. The general permit was adopted at the Commissioner's agenda on September 10th, 2025, and became effective on October 12th, 2025. Existing permittees have 90 days to submit a new NOI under the reissued permit, and that is until January 12th, 2025. 90 days would actually fall on January 10th, which is a Saturday, so it has been rolled forward to that Monday of January 12th, 2026, January 12th, 2026. Significant changes of that general permit include adding a daily maximum effluent limitation, requiring that discharges were dechlorinated to less than 0.1 milligrams per liter total chlorine residual prior to discharge when using chlorination for disinfection purposes. The last general permit I will give an update on is the concrete patch general permit, which is the TXG 110000. TCEQ is proposing to renew and amend this general permit, which authorizes discharges from ready-mix concrete plants, concrete production plants, and their associated facilities. The amendment with renewal will replace the current general permit when it expires on November 7th, 2026. Significant changes to this general permit include that the permittee will be required to submit a copy of the NOI, a notice of change, or a notice of termination to the municipal separate storm sewer system immediately after it is submitted to the TCEQ. We also revised the recommended wet or whole effluent toxicity test species. Specifically, the freshwater test species was expanded to include Cereodaphnia dubia, apologies if I mispronounced that, which is the water flea, as an option, and the marine water test species was revised from Mysidopsis baia to American Mysis baia for the mysid shrimp. We also revised requirements for the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, or the SWP3, to require it to be certified, to require it to be maintained on site and made readily available when requested by TCEQ personnel or any local pollution control agency with jurisdiction. It's been revised to clarify that each point of discharge be indicated on a site map that includes the latitude and longitude, and to require personnel at the facility not directly responsible for implementing or maintaining the activities identified in the SWIP to also receive training. It also revised the annual comprehensive site compliance inspection report to include that it must be certified, and to add a requirement for it to include all necessary actions to remedy a non-compliance, and that for all of those identified actions to be completed as soon as practicable, but no later than 12 weeks following completion of that annual report. The draft permit was sent to EPA for their 90-day review last Friday on October 10th, 2025. And those are all of my updates, Greg.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. Any questions on those permit updates?
Just on the last one, Shannon, 2 questions. Was any of that legislative driven, or those are just changes? What would be the timeline for any public input on that?
Sure. I'm going to if it's okay, I'll let Rebecca take the first question about whether or not the updates to the SWIP and annual comprehensive site compliance inspection report were required by any type of legislation. And then I can take the second question, if that's okay, Rebecca.
So yeah, so no, that's not required by legislation. That's just for consistency with our stormwater construction general permit. Because, you know, we cover certain things that are the same, so we wanted them to be consistent.
Thanks. Thanks, Rebecca. And in terms of the public note, when we expect it to go to public notice, since it was just sent to EPA for their 90-day review, we are anticipating getting it back early January. And if everything proceeds forward, that would put us publishing notice at the end of March or early April of 2026.
Thank you, Shannon. Any other questions? All right. Well, we got one last general permit update to provide, and I'll turn it over to Brian for that.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm here to give the pesticides general permit, which is TXG 870,000 update. TCEQ is proposing to renew and amend the pesticides general permit, which expires November 2nd, 2026. And it authorizes the application of pesticides into, over, including near waters of the state of the U.S. for the control of mosquito and other insect pests, vegetation and algae pests, animal pests, area-wide pests, and forest canopy pests. It's a lot of pests. So there are some changes to the permit where it has been amended for consistency with the EPA and NPDES pesticides general permit to require level 1A operators to document visual evaluation and additional monitoring of the treatment area, to keep a pre and post application record of visual evaluation, and to sign the pesticide discharge management plan in accordance with 30 Texas Administrative Code 305.44. And to give you some timelines here, on June 5th of this year, the draft permit was sent to EPA for their review. And on August 20th, we received a no objection letter from the EPA with approval to proceed with the issuance of the draft general permit. Currently, there are 17 facilities authorized under the existing general permit by NOI submittal, comprising of mainly of cities, counties, Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, and the Trinity Bay Conservation District. Anticipated public notice date will be January 23rd, 2026, with an anticipated comment period to be from January 23rd of 26 to February 23rd of 26. And the anticipated adoption date be estimated around October of 2026, a year from now. And that's all I have. Are there any questions?
Questions for Brian? Thanks, Brian. Last segment of our agenda here are rule updates. We just have one for you. Then I'm going to turn it back over to Shannon to give.
Thanks, Greg. All right, this is an update on our rulemaking to update 30 Texas Administrative Code Chapter 217, which is our wastewater treatment systems design criteria. TCEQ is undertaking revisions to the design criteria. We held a kickoff meeting actually in November of 2020, and we received additional comments from stakeholders through November of 2021. Stakeholder meetings were held on the initial draft revisions throughout 2023 and 2024. Specifically on January 2023, we held a stakeholder meeting on collection systems and alternative collection systems. In February of 2023, a stakeholder meeting on activated sludge was held. March 2023 was on disinfection and safety. April of 2023, we held a stakeholder meeting on preliminary treatment, natural treatment systems, sludge processing, and subsurface drip irrigation. On June 2023, we held a stakeholder meeting on the complete draft revisions, and another stakeholder meeting was held on the complete draft revisions in Spanish in April of 2024. Comments from each of these stakeholder meetings was received and are being considered as we continue to draft our revised version of the rule. The proposed revisions that our division level engineers are currently working on do include making changes to subchapter C for collection system requirements, specifically expanding the section on reclaimed water distribution systems. They are also updating the emergency power requirements for critical components of both the collection system and the wastewater treatment facilities, adding new requirements for nutrient removal. And we are also going to be amending Texas Administrative Code Chapter 222 related to subsurface area drip dispersal systems to move the subchapter D, which is related to design criteria for those systems, under Chapter 217. We're going to establish it as new subchapter I under Chapter 217, and we will simultaneously repeal subchapter D from Chapter 222. The timeline is currently under revision as we have had some turnover in our division level engineer staff, and we should have a better idea of that timeline at the next stakeholder work group meeting. And that's all I've got, Greg.
Thank you, Shannon. Any questions?
This may be a question that has nothing to do with this, forgive me. I remember as part of a legislative process, there being some additional requirements placed on water, and I think maybe also wastewater providers in terms of backup power. Am I making that up, and does this have anything to do with that?
No, I don't think you're making that up. I do believe there was some legislation introduced specifically along those lines, but I don't believe it was signed into law during this legislative session. I don't remember the bill number off the top of my head, but that is one that we analyzed, but it did not.
Changes the changes in this rulemaking that involve power systems were related to legislation. Good idea in terms of design, basically.
They would be unrelated to those specific requirements from that legislative bill.
Any other questions?
When you get older, do you tend to get mixed up a lot about different details, different budget? I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
I do. Personally, I do. Yes. I can relate. All right. Well, actually, that brings us to our final segment, which is another opportunity for questions about any of what we've been talking about or anything else that's on your mind. So fire away if anyone online has something they want to type in the chat or anyone here in the room.
Sure, I have one specifically about MS4. So let's say hypothetically, I get approved in November or December. What do you expect an annual report to look like for, a month? Or, a relatively really short time frame like that?
It depends. It depends on the activities or BMPs that were, promised to be done during that period. If it's something like we're going to hold one annual event, and it was for something that you normally would have hold in the spring, then we might, like, okay, we're not going to make you do it in the winter or when. But again, if it's something that you're supposed to have done 100 inspections a year, and you have 1 month, we'll do a portion of that. That would be equivalent of, 100 divided by 12,
Right.
What would it be? That's sort of what we're expecting. But again, it's something that I encourage you to ask us because it could be specific, to your situation. That might be unique, but yes, sort of look at it that way. If it's something that it's a big number of percentage, it's going to make sense. But when it's just a few items, a few activities, and you had spread them out across the year differently, then it might be hard for you to do that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Well, certainly appreciate everyone's attendance and participation. And before we call the meeting to a close, I just had a couple announcements to give you. They're also at the bottom of the agenda, in case you need to refer back to them. But so our next quarterly meeting will fall on January the 13th, which is a Tuesday of 2026. That will be the same time in the afternoon, 1:30. We'll get back to you fairly soon as we get closer to that time frame on the location of the meeting, whether it be in the same room we're here in today or a different location. We'll let you know in advance. And then secondly, Peter mentioned it a little earlier in his presentation, but we are hosting a stormwater and water quality seminar. We do this every couple of years, and it's next Tuesday, the 21st, at the J.J. Pickle Research Campus. There's a web address there on your agenda you can go to and get more details, but certainly encourage y'all to check that out next week. Rebecca, anything to add on that?
Please attend. Register. There's also a luncheon that you will, have the opportunity to be part of. Chairwoman Pop, if you want to meet our new chairwoman, she will be there at the beginning, giving us a short welcome and introduction. But yeah, we're trying to make this have a little bit different flavor than the trade fair, giving you a few more items or more specific. So we encourage you to attend.
Great. Thanks, Rebecca. All right. Well, thanks again, everyone, for being here. We appreciate it. And I hope you all have a good rest of your afternoon and hope to see you next time. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.